So joining me now, I've got Te Māori MP Tākuta Ferris with me, MP for the largest electorate in the country, which must be difficult, like representing that large of an area. So I guess the first question is how are you, and how are you handling everything at the moment?
Yeah, we're not bad. We're not bad at the moment. Yeah, 3 or 4 months ago, we were just completely bloody under the pump, you know. We sort of got overwhelmed as a new party, new MPs, you know, after the 100 days and then all the run up to the budget, mate. It was a lot to take in. So, but then Parliament has quite a significant break in June and July. So that time just allowed us to reset, take stock, have a look at what actually happened and what we'd been up against, and realise that, wow, far out. You know, maybe we should have done this different, that different, protected our time and our energy a bit better than we did, rather than jumping in on everything. So I think where we are now is we're a lot more matured into what Parliament and its cycles does. And we're more in control of it now as opposed to being controlled by it. So that's a good thing going forward. It's quite an adjustment for our families. Mm-hmm. You know, I've got 3 kids. They're all our oldest is 18, just turned 18. He's out working, and I've got another 2 at Kura still. So often I can be away for the whole week, you know, or more. And so our baby, who's only just turned 13, that's pretty foreign ground for her. And my wife, you know, got to be home looking after the kids in the home front for all that time. It's a lot to put on families. And you see a lot of people say, "Oh, but you put your hand up to do their job," but that doesn't take into account. Actually, no. What people they base that assumption on is what a regular politician has to do. Mm-hmm. A politician who has to look after the local suburb, you know, or has to look after this town and that town. Well, that's not the job we have. We have the job of looking after massive areas and that represent a significant chunk of the Māori people. You know, it's not just I think about rongotai, right? Because rongotai is an electorate. No, I just can't help but laugh. So, you know, you could walk around rongotai and do your job. Mm-hmm. But that's not a luxury we have. We have to sort of plan our moves around big geographic areas. And that's a very Māori thing. So the only way you can ever hope to do a service to one of the Māori electorates is if you have whakapapa in that electorate. So you have all of the old networks that come with having whakapapa, having genealogy. So I'm connected to marae in the top of the south and the iwi in the top of the south. And we're also connected to marae way down in Ngaitahu at Tuahiwi Marae, which is Tuahuriri, and way down at Te Takutai o Te Titi, which is down past Bluff. You know, so we have long family connections in those places, and that allows us to have influence in big areas. Now, your average politicians can't do that. They don't have that sort of scale of network. And so being a politician, being a Māori politician in a Māori seat is a very different thing. It's a different beast to being a politician in a general seat, or even being a Māori politician in a general seat or on a list of another party. And I hope that we can really bring some clarity to that for our people in particular, because often our own people are quite harsh. You know, they're like, well, why haven't you been to Te Muka? And why haven't you been to Arahura? You know? And we've just got to do the best we can with the money that we've got to do it. And the funding that the Māori electorates get is abysmal. Yeah. It's abysmal. You know, the Tai Tonga, there are around 30 electorates in Te Tai Tonga.
Oh, wow. I didn't realise it was so many. I thought it was 16, 17, or is that just the South Island?
Nope. So there are about, how many there's? Ohariu, the Hut, the Wellington ones, there's about 5 of them. So there's like 7 in the North Island part of it, So, I'm pretty sure, I can always go and double check it, but it's definitely high 20s or 30.
As the MP who represents the entire South Island, you've obviously had some pretty shitty news being delivered by the government last week around the hospital down in Dunedin, as well as the fact that there seems to be a bit of playing off other areas. Like, if we don't do this now, we won't be able to have a rebuild in Nelson. But you covered that whole area. I'm kind of curious what your perspective is on those sort of comments that have come from the government and how mainstream media might not necessarily be picking up on that connectedness between the entire island down there and the work that you do.
Well, Māori and Te Tai Tonga know that whatever the government says, 99 times out of 100, it's not going to happen. The playing things off, for Māori and Te Tai Tonga, it does matter, right? It does matter because those types of big public infrastructure pieces have an impact on everyone's life. But you see, the degree to which Māori are trapped in low income, impoverished living standards, below the poverty line, all of that sort of stuff, they can't even get a GP right. Can't even get good access to a nurse for help. So, your $100 million hospital, it's not even on the list. It's not we're not really, we know that's not going to happen anyway. What we want is my kids or my grandparents or my parents to be able to be looked after straight away when and where they need it. And, our iwi organizations do a good job. And the whānau Ora network has done a good job, but it's still underfunded. It's still under capacity, required capacity. They work over their capacity, but it's still beneath the capacity need. And here you go, you got the government defunding whānau Ora. That's what they're doing. They're saying that they're not defunding it, but by allowing other providers to bid for the same money, you are defunding it. So these are the things that really matter to our whānau on the ground. A hospital is nice and it's good and all of that, but we know whatever they say isn't going to get done anyway. So we're more about the immediate need. What's the immediate safeguard? And even those things are not there.
I was going to say, you sort of came, this is your first term in Parliament, and you got in at the same time as what some media experts have called our most anti-Māori government ever. Do you think that that's a deliberate choice from this government to ignore those needs, or is that an ignorance thing that some of them just aren't aware of where those needs are and are choosing not to look at that information?
Yeah, I think there's a few things that come together to make that storm happen. So, just quickly, bro, won't spend much time on it. You got the problem in this country and its democratic system that sees the old population dominate it. So when you've got a country that's got a young population but they don't get involved, you might want to have a grown-up chat about that. Okay. Just quickly, I recently saw the numbers, the cohorts of voters. So you got 18 to 24, 26 to 32, 32 to all the way up to plus 75, right? And so all of those cohorts are about 300,000 until you get to up above 65. Then it becomes 500,000, and then above 70 is like 700,000. So you're naturally going to have an old people slanted view of the world. And that's what the baby boomers are, right? No secret in this country, no secret around the world. But can the country handle a grown-up convo about it? And the grown-up convo is, despite what anyone thinks, the young people don't engage. And if you go and talk to them, it's primarily because it's an old system. The old, you know, who wants to listen to that? But the old people love it. So there you go. And then you have political parties that prey on that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So enter ACT in New Zealand first. ACT is the most extreme, preying on those people. Then you got Winston, who's been a perpetual preyer on those people.
Mm-hmm.
That's how he stayed alive. And then you've got the centre-right, who naturally go that way as well. But I wouldn't say they prey on them, but they definitely pursue them because of their sort of demographic and citizen profile, if you like. So that's a problem for the country because we actually have a young population, even though we're going into aging. And then when you look at Māori are an extremely young population. If you looked at a graph, a population graph for Pākehā in New Zealand looks like this: young at the bottom, old at the top. The Māori one looks like this: old at the top, young at the bottom. So these things need decent discussion, eh? And so another problem that the country has, and it's around ignorance, is you've got a leader. We now have a leader, Chris Luxon, who spent the majority of his adult professional life in other countries. So he comes back to New Zealand and he don't know what the hell's going on, you know? Why are all these Māori groups in charge of so much stuff now? And why does everyone want to know what I think about the treaty? You know, and he doesn't know nothing about the treaty. I can guarantee you that. He's probably learnt a few things, but he hasn't been in there long enough for those things to actually penetrate his own mind, his own bias, to a point where he's able to constructively employ them in his ideating, in his idea creation, right? He's not at that point yet. So that vacuum, when your leader doesn't have that capacity, that vacuum gets filled up by any idiot with an idea. And that's what the country has got now. So, you know, all of those things come together. You scare the old people by saying the gangs are going to get you and the Maoris don't have jobs and all of this. They're going to take your beaches. And then you've got a coalition that's sort of put together. It's not a great fit, but that got them over the line. Yeah. And if I was really blunt about it, you know, going back to just bashing the Māoris got them across the line and they're sticking with it. But the critical part of me, and I've been in SLT jobs for like 15 years now. And so I know what the national information sets and international information sets look like. And pretty much this is a young country. If you can't get the societal settings right to help your young people thrive, you're going nowhere. Your long-term view is, you know, it's not good. And so whilst these current parties run around trying to faff around and do everything they can for the old people, they're ignoring the young people. And by ignoring the young people, you are ignoring the future economic needs of your country, the labor needs of your country, the social needs of your country. You're ignoring it all just so that you can stay in power right now. Yeah, so that's pretty stupid in my view.
Yeah. Speaking of staying in power and dealing with old people, you mentioned Winston, who's been around forever. You seem to have a unique talent to annoy him just by being in the house. I'm just wondering, how do you do that? Like, what is it that you bring to the table that annoys him and Shane Jones so much?
Oh, I just bring the truth.
Fair.
And not afraid to say it out loud in front of anyone. That's what annoys them. You know, I'm voted into Parliament by 13,000 Māori individuals. So the only thing I'm there to say is the Māori truth and to put forward the Māori expectation and aspiration. And every time I do it, they don't like what it sounds like. They don't like what it looks like. But tough, too bad. Get used to it or get going.
I'd like them to get going, to be honest, but
yeah,
it's just it's frustrating.
Oh,
I think retired terms ago, to be honest, but he ain't going to do that anytime soon. No.
Yeah, and I'm unapologetic about that. If he wants to go toe-to-toe every day, I'll do it every day until he quits.
I'm down for that. I want to watch that. That'll be amazing. You also sit on the Justice Committee, which means that you get a whole bunch of the bullshit that Paul Goldsmith puts through because he thinks it's the right committee for it to end up in. How have you found that process? Because I know you've got the is it the customary land titles coming up, or customary marine titles?
Marine title,
marine titles. You had Māori wards come through that as well. It seems to be the go-to select committee for anything that they want to push through that's relatively anti-Māori at the moment. So I'm kind of curious how you feel about that process and being the Te Māori representative on there.
Yeah. The process is a complete waste of time. Waste of taxpayer money, waste of energy, waste of everything. And I'll tell you why. I've sat in on all of those ones you described, on the gang legislation, on the ram raid legislation, all of these ones that any fool would understand will have a significant impact on Māori. You don't even have to be educated to work that one out. And so the government's view, right, is that democracy is the king, except for when you get to select committee. And like this just like boom, blows my mind. How is this even possible? So let's take gang legislation, right? Because that's been hot. Anti-patches. So pretty much what happens in the Justice Select Committee is all of the national justice-related bodies submit. So all the lawyer groups, all the prosecution groups, the defense groups, the Māori lawyers, the anti-prison crew, the pro-children crew, the children commissioner, all of these people come and submit. And on the vast majority of all these bills that are going to be quite anti-Māori, they've all said, no, it's not a good idea. Okay, so these are all the authoritative national body, representative bodies in the country. They come along time after time after time and say, no, that's not a good idea because A, B, C, D. With regard to the gang legislation, they said the bill should never have got into the House to start. The bill should be stopped immediately, should be thrown out. That's what they said. It should be thrown out. And the government should have to start again, taking on proper legal advice. Because the government, they don't even take on legal advice. And then all the legal bodies come to their select committee, they submit saying, no, not a good idea. And then the government just keeps on doing it. How undemocratic can you get? Where's the public outroar, rage on this one? But more to the point, why is a democratically elected and a devotee of democratic process government allowed to continue? There should be a threshold. If 50% of the submitters at a select committee are against the bill, it should be automatically triggered to stop, because that's what democracy says. But no,
I was going to say, I know with the Māori wards bill, that was something like 3,000 submissions and 85 to 90% of them were against the changes. And then they turn around and just go, we're going to do it anyway. It doesn't feel like a democratic process. With the customary marine title stuff, I saw this morning Crown Law, somebody leaked a document or released a document that they weren't supposed to, that wasn't redacted properly to one of the media outlets, which says Crown Law said, don't do this, you're going to screw yourself over, and they're still going ahead and doing it. Do you get much feedback from the public about that kind of just completely ignoring the will of the public?
No, we haven't really. And, it's definitely something we want to shine the light on. You've got this democratic process and the government, so National, New Zealand First, and ACT, every week they go on about, well, there was an election and we were democratically voted in, so we won and you lost, so bugger you lot. They just go on and on about democracy, yet the huge majority of the process ignores it. So it needs more education, like right across the board. Everyone just needs to get a little bit more educated. And I don't think it's it's not some deep level of education. It just needs to be exposed a little bit so people actually recognize that, oh, crikeys. You know, the fast track bill, that had some record amount of tens of thousands of submissions, pretty much 99.9% opposing. You know, yet they just kept going. I mean, it just makes a mockery of it, doesn't it?
Yeah. What does that mean for the next 2 years for you guys?
Well, what it means is that we'll achieve very little in terms of legislative clawback or gain. So what we have to focus on is educating our people and educating the public of New Zealand, or the people who actually have they have you know, many non-Māori in this country have a deep connection, and they have a deep commitment. Sorry about that, bro. Man, get rid of that phone. You know, they actually have a deep commitment to Aotearoa, New Zealand. A lot of people I know who are non-Māori, they know that there's something in the treaty that they should be looking after. You know, they know that the treaty does something for them. They're not too sure what it is, but they have a sort of sense of responsibility. But it's sort of easy to just leave it to the government. You know, but so our drive for the next 2 years will be to push education into that, public education.
I realise we must be running out of time fairly quickly. I've got one more question for you. The Treaty Principles Bill, how fucked up is that going to make things?
Oh, it won't go anywhere, bro.
Cool.
Even if they did like kick it past the first reading, you're dealing with they're dealing with things that are beyond their own understanding. So if that thing ends up in a real court or on a real international stage, they will be annihilated.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated.
Yeah, no sweat.
Awesome.